Every character in the game is made up of 6 things: their base stats, which include their weapon type, and their 5 talents: normal attack, elemental skill, elemental burst, ascension 1 passive, and ascension 4 passive. If I asked you to create the strongest character under these 6 restrictions, who would it be? Usually in Genshin there are 3 roles: the on-field, the sub-DPS, and the support. I created 3 characters, one for each role. After extensive thinking, this is what I cooked up with. For our main DPS, the base character I'll be taking is Klee. I know this seems like a throw pick, but let me explain the rest of the talents. Our normal attack talent will be Hu Tao for the fast and no ICD charged attacks that'll help with the rest of our character's kit. Our elemental skill will be Navia, with a 9-second cooldown and a very high base scaling even without any stacks. I promise you this skill will fit very well with the rest of our kit. Our elemental burst will be Freminaze. For a character that came out at the same time as Linny and Lynette, I really haven't seen anyone talk about his kit. But trust me, his burst has great synergy with Navia's skill in this context. When you enter Freminaze's burst, you gain resistance to interruption and your skill cooldown is reset. You also gain normal attack damage bonus, but none of this really matters. The main reason why we're taking his burst is because of the whopping 70% cooldown reduction on his elemental skill. This turns Navia's 9-second cooldown into a 2.7-second cooldown. Our first Ascension passive talent will be Hazo's. When triggering a swirl reaction, or in our case, a pyro reaction, Hazo will gain 1 stack for his elemental skill, or in our case, Navia's elemental skill. This is where our normal attack comes in. Since Klee is a catalyst, all of her normal attacks will be elemental attacks. With Hu Tao's no ICD charged attacks, we can build up stacks extremely quickly while Navia's skill is on cooldown. Our A4 passive talent will be Bennett's. When inside of our elemental burst, our elemental skill will have an additional 50% cooldown reduction. This, combined with the 70% cooldown reduction from before, gives our elemental skill a 1.35 second cooldown. Navia's elemental skill, which has 2 charges, no ICD, on a 1.35 second cooldown. Let's go back to the base character of Klee. I chose Klee for 2 reasons. First of all, she's Pyro. I mean, we've seen how strong a Pyro character can be with no ICD. But on top of this, none of our talents give elemental fusion, which leads me to my second reason. She's a catalyst. We need elemental fusion for our A1 passive, so we don't really have any other choice. As a bonus, Kagura's Verity will be the perfect weapon for us. With a crit damage substat and a passive talent that will very easily give us 36% more elemental skill damage and 12% elemental damage bonus, there really isn't anything more you need. For our sub DPS, I believe that Hydro is the best element. For that reason, I'll be taking Nilou as our base character. Our normal attack talent can honestly be anyone. Our skill and burst will be able to work perfectly fine from off-field, so there's no reason to stay on-field. Our elemental skill will be Furina. Truckloads of damage, easily 100% uptime, good elemental application, there isn't really much more you could ask for. The only drawback is that it drains our character's HP down to 50%, but with the existence of shields and Marechaussee Hunter, this honestly is not that bad, and in some cases it could even be good. Our elemental burst will be Yelan. I was actually really struggling with this category, especially between Yelan and Xingqiu, but I feel like Yelan is probably better. Yelan has a cheaper elemental burst and more uptime, which I think gives her a slight edge in comparison to Xingqiu's damage resistance. Our A1 passive will be Baizhu. While the 20% healing bonus when below 50% HP is essentially wasted, as long as you keep your active character healthy, this passive will give an unconditional 25% elemental damage bonus. This sounds like anti-synergy between Furina's skill and Baizhu, But since Furina's skill only drains you down to 50% HP, it's not as bad as it sounds. Our A4 passive will be Zhongli's. We'll basically just be getting a ton of additional damage bonus on our skill and burst based off of our max HP. If you've noticed, all of our talents depend on our HP, which is another reason why I chose Nilou. With a monstrous base HP, she also has the ability to run Ki as a sword character. Right off the bat, the best support element has to be Anemo. Viridescent Venerer is stupidly strong. On top of that, Freedom Sworn is an amazing support sword as well, so our base character will be Jean. Support characters are unreliant on their normal attacks, so just like sub DPS, this can basically be anyone. Our elemental skill though will be Kokomi. This skill will give Viridescent Venerer 100% uptime, and on top of that, it also heals. With such a long time and consistent elemental application, even if you mess up a double swirl, it won't make that big of a difference. Our elemental burst will be Venti's. Amazing grouping and triggers a lot of swirl reactions. Our A1 will be Nahida. When we cast our Venti burst, our active character will gain up to 250 elemental mastery, which is absolutely insane on certain teams. Our A4 will be Kazuha's. When we trigger a swirl reaction, this talent will grant all party members an insane elemental damage bonus, which paired with Kokomi's skill will effectively be a 100% uptime. Our A1 and A4 both scale on elemental mastery, and swirl reactions naturally just scale well on EM, meaning not only will we provide an insane amount of buffs to our team, we'll also be doing some pretty decent damage as well. But now that I've created my top 3, there's only one thing left for me to do. Create the absolute worst character I can think of. I'll come back to the base character later, so let's start off with our normal attacks. Anybody who has played Klee before can tell you, this character works way too hard for so little. Our elemental skill will be the newest character, Arlecchino. Now, you might say, isn't Arlecchino's skill good? No. Arlecchino's Pyro Infusion is actually linked to her normal attack talent, not with her elemental skill. Same thing goes for the cooldown reduction. That means that this talent has a 30-second cooldown, and to perform the cleave damage, you have to perform a 50 stamina charged attack, which will give you Bond of Life that does not help you. Our elemental burst will be Hydro Traveler. There aren't any bursts that I would truly consider to be bad, but Hydro Traveler is just very, very underwhelming. Our A1 will be Kaya's Cold-Blooded Strike. This talent restores a very small amount of HP when you hit an enemy with your elemental skill. You see the problem here? A very minor heal on a 30-second cooldown? Except if you have Bond of Life from using the cleave damage before, then you won't even heal at all. Our A4 is also very similar to our A1. Anemo Traveler's A4 restores 10% HP after killing an enemy with your elemental skill. It suffers the same problems as our A1, to the point where both A1 and A4 are just completely useless. The last thing we need to do is choose our base character. I struggled a lot with this, but ultimately I decided to go with Goro. The only useful thing I could see about this character would be the elemental application on their burst. But if that elemental application is Geo, well then this character really supplies 0 support, 0 damage, 0 healing, basically nothing. But what about you guys? Could you create a better character than me? Maybe even a worse character? Either way, I love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.